Imagine waking up one day at 65 years old, looking at your bank account, and realizing you have to keep working, not because you want to, but because you can't afford to stop. Now imagine the opposite. You wake up, make yourself a cup of coffee, spend time with your family, travel where you've always wanted to go, and never worry about whether your next paycheck is coming. The difference between these two futures isn't luck. It isn't about earning millions of dollars or winning the lottery. In most cases, it comes down to one simple decision: starting your retirement plan early and sticking to it. The surprising part? Someone who earns an average income but starts investing in their 20s can often retire wealthier than someone who earns twice as much but waits until their 40s to begin. Let's get started. 1. What retirement really means. When most people hear the word retirement, they imagine someone old, sitting on a beach with grey hair, enjoying life after decades of work. But retirement isn't really about reaching a certain age. Retirement simply means having enough money that working becomes a choice instead of a necessity. Think about that for a second. If you had enough savings and investments to pay your bills every month without needing a paycheck, you could choose to keep working because you enjoy it, or stop whenever you wanted. That's financial freedom. Many people think retirement is only for the rich. That's one of the biggest myths about money. In reality, retirement planning is less about how much you earn and more about what you do with the money you earn. Imagine two friends. The first earns $120,000 a year but spends almost everything. The second earns $60,000 a year but consistently saves and invests 20% of every paycheck. After decades, the second person could end up with far more wealth simply because they built good habits. This matters because your future lifestyle depends more on consistent financial decisions than occasional big paychecks. Bob's first tip is simple: stop thinking of retirement as something for old people. Think of it as buying your future freedom. And speaking of freedom, there's one invisible force that can either make you incredibly wealthy or leave you struggling. It's called compound interest. 2. The magic of compound interest. Albert Einstein is often credited with calling compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether or not he actually said it, the idea behind the quote is absolutely true. Compound interest means your money earns money, and then that new money also earns money. Imagine planting a single mango tree. After a few years, it produces fruit. Some of those mangoes grow into new trees. Soon those trees also produce fruit. Eventually, one tree becomes an entire orchard. That's exactly how investing works. Let's look at an example. Suppose Sarah invests $300 every month starting at age 25. Now imagine James waits until he's 35 before starting, but he invests the exact same amount every month. Sarah only started 10 years earlier. Yet by retirement, she could have hundreds of thousands of dollars more than James because her money had more time to grow. Notice something interesting. She didn't necessarily invest dramatically more money. She simply gave her investments more time. That's why time is often more valuable than the amount you invest. The earlier you begin, the harder your money works for you. Bob's practical tip is this: if you can only afford a small amount today, start anyway. Waiting until you can invest a lot often costs far more than starting small. But that raises another question. If time is so powerful, when is the best time to actually begin? 3. When should you start planning for retirement? Here's the shortest answer Bob can give. As soon as you earn your first income. That could be your first job, your first freelance payment, your first business profit, or your first paycheck after graduation. Many young people think retirement is something they'll worry about in their 40s or 50s. Unfortunately, that's exactly what causes financial stress later in life. Imagine you're running a marathon. One runner starts from the official starting line. Another decides to begin 5 miles behind everyone else. Even if the second runner runs faster, catching up becomes much harder. Retirement works the same way. Every year you delay means less time for your investments to grow. Does that mean you failed if you're already 35, 45, or even 55? Absolutely not. The second best time to start is today. Every day you wait is another missed opportunity. Bob's advice is never let regret stop you from making progress. Whether you're 18 or 58, your future self will benefit from the decisions you make today. Now that we know when to start, let's answer another important question. How much money should you actually save? 4. How much should you save? This is one of the questions Bob hears most often. The truth is that there's no single number that works for everyone. Your retirement savings depend on the kind of lifestyle you want. Do you want to travel often? Do you want a quiet life in a small town? Do you plan to support family members? These choices affect how much money you'll eventually need. A common recommendation is to save between 10% and 20% of your income for retirement if possible. If that's too much right now, don't panic. Bob's practical tip is simple: don't invest in something you don't understand. Learn first, then invest with confidence. But even good investments can become risky if all your money is in one place. That brings us to the next lesson. 7. Why diversification matters. Imagine you're carrying 10 eggs. Would you rather put all 10 eggs into one basket or spread them across several baskets? Most people would choose several baskets because if one falls, you don't lose everything. Investing works exactly the same way. Putting every dollar into one company, one cryptocurrency, one property, or one business can be very risky. Markets go up. Markets go down. Entire industries change. Companies that seemed unstoppable can struggle years later. Diversification simply means spreading your investments across different assets. For example, instead of putting everything into one stock, an investor might own hundreds or even thousands of companies through a diversified index fund. If one company performs poorly, the others can help balance the overall investment. Real-world example. 8. The silent enemy, inflation. Inflation is one of those financial words that sounds complicated, but the idea is actually very simple. Inflation means prices tend to rise over time. Think back to what everyday items cost 10 or 20 years ago. A meal. A movie ticket. A gallon of fuel. A loaf of bread. In many places, they all cost much more today than they did years ago. That means the money sitting still is slowly losing purchasing power. Imagine putting an ice cube on a table. You don't notice the melting immediately. But leave it there long enough, and eventually it's gone. Inflation works in much the same way. IT's slow. IT's quiet. But over decades, its effect is enormous. That's why retirement planning isn't just about saving money. IT's about growing money faster than inflation. Bob's practical tip is to review your retirement plan every year. As prices change, your savings goals may need to change too.